is unique to working with students who are deafblind versus working with those who are visually impaired?
The main thing I find very different is communication.
Yes.
Trying to communicate what it is that you're trying to teach frequently needs a different method than I would normally use.
Absolutely.
If it's sign language, or sometimes it's just speaking much louder than I normally do, or using more, it depends on the amount of vision that the student has, more gestures. So that is quite different.
But I agree with Steve, communication is a big one, and there's just so many forms of communication with students who are deafblind, from ASL to fingerspell to palm printing to tactile symbols, and you have to figure out what they use, or sometimes they use a combination of them, what to use when, or just simple things instead of having to stop and talk to them, going straight up their back for going straight or left or right or forward or backwards, and just developing something like that. And that's very helpful to a PT too. If there's a student, I had a deafblind adult actually who had knee surgery, and she had to learn to walk again, and she had to use her walker. Well, she used ASL, but you can't assign to her when she's having to use the walker because she didn't have the balance anymore. And so we developed the forward, left, right, back, sit down, just by doing that on her back. So and that was very helpful for the PT.
I find that when I was thinking about deaf blindness, the deafblind population is not a homogeneous group.
Right.
Very diverse. Just the degree of visual impairment, from totally blind to considerable amount of functional vision, to those with no hearing, to those with quite a bit of hearing.
That's true.
And the combination together, it's just so broad, and what you have to do is just really look at the individual and find out what works. Yeah, a lot of trial and error. I found that I knew that I had to be very adaptable and to really work hard on trying to figure out what works and keep experimenting. And it's a lot of work, and I think that through time you gain a lot of knowledge, and you have many tricks up your sleeve that you can pull out when you need to do it because you've experienced similar things in the past.
What is your role on the students' team, and how do you work to implement IEP goals?
One of the most important ways of exchanging information about a particular student is at the IEP meeting. To me, attendance at the IEP meeting is essential for all service providers, and if possible, to stay through the entire IEP meeting. There is so much that you can get about the student, understand about the student, that you don't usually get in just reading over information, or maybe just working in your particular area. And in addition to that, the team meetings, if they happen, are also really important. It's a time to discuss what problems you might be having, and ways that, as a group, problem solving, to try to figure out how to overcome a problem and how to help the student better.
Back to the IEPs, I think it starts there. A lot of times the trend, is to you write the O&M goals, I'll write the vision goals, you write the OT goals and the PT goals, but write one goal for the whole team. So we're all working on the same thing. So if Johnny's learning how to cut, Vision's doing it, OT's doing it, classroom teacher's doing it, and maybe he might be cutting with adaptive scissors, or maybe he's cutting with a 20/20 marker, highlight it so it's easier for him to see. But we have to figure out how is Johnny going to learn how to cut this piece of paper with all of us involved, and we're all teaching the same goal instead of having isolated goals. That's number one. And I do really simple things like, it could be anything from like a notebook, a student's backpack where we write notes to each other. I email people all the time and saying, I'm doing this, can you follow through on this? Or I always give my email on the information sheet I give every teacher at the beginning of the year, and I have it posted in every classroom. the information sheet with the student's name, if it's okay with the parents, of course, because of the confidentiality, and divisional impairment accommodations and teaching tips, and their IEP goals. And I have my schedule there with my contact information and my email, so we can email each other about different things. And the classroom teacher will often email me and say, Jane's having trouble with greater than and less than. So and maybe in mobility, we'll work on the address system, greater than and less than. Or maybe if I'm doing vision, I'll incorporate it to my tracking lessons or something like that. So it's getting hit by the student at all angles, whatever that they're having problems with. Back to the parents saying, what's important to you? You have mobility, you have vision, you have OTPT, you have speech. A lot of times speech is the most important thing to parents because they want to communicate with their child. All the other things are kind of secondary. That's okay. Well, then how can I help you accomplish your speech goals with my vision expertise? Do you need me to make the pictures bigger? Do you want me to make borders around them? Do you want me to make tactile borders? Do you want objects? How can I help you meet those goals? And I often ask, instead of imposing what I think should be done, I keep asking questions. Well, okay, those are your goals. You're very important. How can I help you? And time is like we don't have any. And so if I offer to make pictures for somebody, they're really happy.
How else do you share information and learn from others to better help your students?
I find that when I'm working with the other disciplines, people, speech and language pathologists, and occupational therapists, physical therapists, that many times I believe that they get probably more information from me by watching me work.
Yes.
Watching me working with a student, and I find the same thing in terms of how I learn what they do. I learn a lot by watching them work. And I find one of the most effective things that we have done is, many times it's happened by accident. There's a scheduling conflict that we didn't know about, and we both happen to be working and meeting the student at the same time. And a lot of us will some get upset with it. I think it's great. Wow, what a great opportunity. We usually don't get this. Let's go ahead and work together. And we really start understanding more about what the student needs because we're seeing it from different perspectives. Also, I find acknowledging the importance of what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Making them aware that you appreciate and that it's very important for the student that those services be provided. That helps considerably.
I kind of see my role is not only informing the teacher, but kind of pulling a team together so that everybody knows what they're doing and how the visual impairment or hearing impairment affects what they're doing and how they need to adapt. And then that's kind of where the consultation comes in too. Oftentimes, I find it's real helpful just to have a session or 2 or 5 or 10, whatever we need together, working together as a team instead of working in isolation. So I say, what time do you guys come? If it's the OT or PT or the speech, and I'll come during your time if I can, and then we'll work together. So if you have questions, I'm right there to answer them, and that's kind of very helpful.
And working together is so important. There's so much that we can do when people work together as a multidisciplinary, transdisciplinary team. Always keeping in mind what is it that the student needs, because a lot of egos do get involved, and you've got to kind of keep coming back to what is it that the student needs.